Hello, today I'm going to show you a small screencast on how to record audio in Logic Pro. This is part of Introduction to Music Production, which is a course that is given by Lon Stearns at Coursera.org. Hello, I'm Benigno Calvo Diego. I'm from Zaragoza, Spain, and let's see just very briefly what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to explain the basic setup of the DAW. The digital audio workstation will be then creating and setting up the tracks so that they are ready, setting up the metronome and setting up everything so that we can record. What I'm going to show you now is just a little guitar, a few bars, okay? So let's move on to this. Let's move on to Logic. In Logic, when you're going to create a new file, let's create a new project. And let's start by an empty project. Okay, Logic doesn't like you to create a project without tracks, so it will open up this little window here in which it will ask you, okay, what's the first track going to be? As we are going to be recording audio, I'm going to leave it there. And as I'm going to be recording a guitar, which is mono input, I'll leave it in mono. And I'll make sure that I select the correct input. Okay, I could already select here input monitoring or record enable the track, but I'm going to leave that for later. So for now, let's just create this. Okay, so there we have our track. But before we do anything else, we will go to Logic Pro Preferences and I'm going to check Audio. The first thing we're going to check is what's the buffer size. The smaller the better, but 128 samples will be enough. The smaller the better for recording. If the computer starts complaining, we will increase the buffer size. The other thing we're going to be checking is our 24-bit recording. We want to have 24-bit because this will give us a better resolution when it comes to checking amplitudes. This better resolution allows us to record at lower input levels and still keep a lot of information in the recording. Now we'll go to General and check the recording file type. We want this one to be broadcast wave. Okay, this is all we need to check now from the preferences, and there are a few other things that we want to check. The next thing we want to check is what's the sample rate setup for this project. So we will go to File, Project Settings, Audio, and in here we can find the sample rate. It's right now set up 44,000. We will move it to 48. Setting it at 48 is not that much more information for the computer to handle, and this way you're using the standard for many things having to do with film, movies, etc. Okay, so we'll just set it there. I leave the other defaults and I'm done with the project settings. There is another thing there, but I wanted to show you another way of how to find those project settings. We're going to be checking the metronome and the recording. You can access them from here. You just right click or control click on the metronome and just click at metronome settings. And here you can select a different sound for the metronome settings, and you can select when you want this sound to be heard. So you could always be hearing it while playing or not, whatever you prefer. And we will be checking at recording what's the count in. I like to set it at 2 bars to give me ample time to get into the beat and to set up with my guitar and everything. So that as soon as you have done that, you save the project. Else, as soon as you start recording audio, it will ask you to save the project. But it's much better that you do it right away and you remember to click save. If you don't, let's see what happens. If I start arming a track for recording, Logic right away asks you, okay, what's the project? And why is that? Because as soon as we start recording, it will want to know where to put those files. Okay, so remember to have a good naming for your project so that you can recognize and keep everything there. So let's call this a screencast audio recording, for example, and I'm going to create a folder for this. If I hit save, it will ask me whether I want to use something or create a new. As this is a new project, I'm going to create it. I always create their own folders for the whole project information. Okay, so that's done. And now, before we do anything else, remember to name your tracks. So we would name this, for example, I'm going to record a guitar here. So maybe guitar, Stratocaster. You might want to also change icons or do whatever you want there. If we were to record it, if we wanted to record another track, I can create a new one by clicking here. I'm disarming this one and creating a new one in format mono. I again select what input I want to use, click create, and there we go. Now, as I'm not going to be using this track, I'm going to remove the input from this one. I come here, I click no input, and that consumes less resources. I'm going to go back to the track that we have in here, and once I'm sure that it's named, I'm going to record enable it. And before we record, I want to make one additional step. So even before arming it, what I would do is plugging in my instrument. It's already plugged in, so I'm not, and you cannot see it. But normally, before plugging in, you turn on the gain, you plug in the instrument, then if it's needed, you turn on the phantom power, check the settings at your audio interface, and only then, once you are sure, you bring the gain up again. Now, again, before recording, there's one more thing to check, and it's a very important thing, which is checking the level. So how do we do that? Well, normally you will be checking them first on your audio card, okay? But let's imagine you've already done that part, and even if you have done it, you want to check from within here what levels you're going to be recording, okay? Because one thing's whatever the audio card tells you, and a different thing is what the DAW is going to record. So I'm going to make sure that Logic hears and sees as much as it can of what I want to record without hitting the red part here, so without clipping. So what I need to do is play or rehearse at least the loudest parts of whatever I'm going to play, okay? Just rehearse this. Okay, there's some clipping there, so I don't want that clipping from happening. So to avoid that, I'll just bring this input level down. I'm going to bring it maybe 8 dBs. Okay, let's try again there. Okay, and that's good. Maybe it went a little bit loud there, but it didn't hit the red part. To be safe, I'm going to pull it down just a little bit more, because I know that when I start recording, I tend to play a bit louder. And as that's the case, I just bring it down. Maybe instead of 2 dBs, I'm going to bring it down 3 dBs. Okay, so now everything's ready. I make sure that I'm what I want to record. I make sure that I'm on the correct track. I make sure that the track is armed. And now I just hit record. we can check there hasn't been any clipping. I'm going to check the levels of this audio, maybe play it back, check that everything's correctly heard before I'm satisfied. I could be creating several takes, I could be doing many things. Now, I want to leave it there before making things more complex. What we have seen today is a few things. So the first thing is checking the project settings before doing anything else. Those settings are basically buffer side, keep it low as you can. 128 is usually good enough for a recording. Checking the bit rate, make sure it's in 24 bits to get as much as you can from the amplitude that you're recording. As much detail as possible. Check the recording file type. We went for broadcast wave. Check the sample rate. We decided to stick to 48,000 kilohertz. And after that is done, save the project to make sure that you name it correctly. Make sure you put it somewhere where you're going to find it easily. Then we checked the metronome settings so that when we record, we are going to get that count in if we want. We are going to get as many bars as we want, and we are making sure that it sounds. Once that's done, we create our track, we arm our track, we check the input levels, we check it by playing the loudest parts of whatever we are going to record. Make sure there is enough headroom for it to be recorded without clipping. And once that's done, we hit record, and you can get a good recording with those instructions. I hope this has served you, and that you have enjoyed this screencast. Thank you for watching. Ciao.